Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Sorry, Holly. Hello and welcome to Series 3, Episode 12 of Around the World Today here on Podcasts by Real Terrio. And oh my god, I actually got that right. So, you are listening to the 12th of this series, and please do go and listen back on our website, realterrio.com. And today we're talking about, I don't know, you probably guessed it, right? By the name of this episode, I will drive 260 miles. I let you all into this. So if you're in the United Kingdom, there's one story that's dominating our news cycle, and that's that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson's aide, Dominic Cummings, who is a politically appointed person. So he's not democratically elected whatsoever. He's just an aide. He's an assistant. He advises. Advisors advise when ministers govern. In this instance, we'll go into it later. But we're talking about this. So let's get down to it. So within the United Kingdom in the last few days, like I just said, this story is only, dominated. Got rid of all of the other news stories. I think the second news story that's coming out now is that either about the young man who was killed by police officers in America, or Donald Trump going after the social media companies. We will have a podcast about that. But anyway, so the politically appointed person, Dominic Cummings, you may know him from Architect of Brexit, or good shows like that. But anyway, he broke the lockdown rules. In my opinion, he broke the rules. However, there were some circumstances there, like I've been told that his child is autistic. As someone who has worked with autistic children, I know that autistic children take time to bond. So it's not as easy what some people are saying, could have you, drop your son off with a friend? Actually, no, you couldn't, because if the child doesn't know them, the child who doesn't know how to show emotion because of their disability isn't going to show emotion. So I get why he did it. But surely if there were two people willing to help you in Durham, wouldn't it have been easier, instead of moving you, your wife and your child, who were all showing symptoms at that point, wouldn't it have just been easier if one of those people travelled by public transport on the railway that was still running from Durham to London and came to you? Instead, you could have affected people. And it turns out last night that the Durham Constabulary Police said that Dominic Cummings, if approached by a police officer on his 30-mile drive to Barnet Castle, he would have been told to go back home, back into Durham, because he would have been breaching the lockdown rules. Then you've got the whole fact that he said he was driving to test his eyesight. Now, who in their right mind, who is having eye problems? Remember, I have a friend who is blind. I have two friends, one who is visually impaired, one who is blind, and I also have a visual impairment too. So basically, who in their right mind drives if your sight is playing up? You don't, especially, right, you take your whole family with you. I can't get over that. And I'm sorry that I just shouted, but, we're trying it a bit different today. So back to the news. How are we? Are we enjoying it? So, people are saying this is about Brexit. This is about the left and the right. This is about Labour and v Conservative, SN Nationalist v Unionist. Well, actually, no, it isn't. It isn't even about any of those things. What this really is about is right from wrong. Now, at the end of the day, many British people followed the rules. Kept themselves locked up, kept themselves away from family members, didn't go and say goodbye to loved ones when they were dying. I have heard stories of people having to say goodbye to a loved one over FaceTime. Instead of being there, able to hold their hands. I'm just appalled by the fact that this man is giving the advice. He is sitting in sage, giving the advice, getting the advice, then giving it to the Prime Minister and the ministers, but not acting on it himself. He was running out of Downing Street. Shall we look at the timeline, people, of Dominic Cummings' alleged week of all of this? So, we're in March 2020, wasn't it? A lovely time. We were all told to stay in. And only travel when you need to. And not to travel outside your local area. So a 260-mile trip to Durham isn't really in your local area. Now, on March 23rd, Boris Johnson orders the UK-wide coronavirus lockdown. Wasn't it lovely? Now, March 27th at 11:15 a.m., Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, and Mr. Cummings' boss, announces that he has been diagnosed with coronavirus. March 27th, around an hour later, Mr. Cummings is seen running out of Downing Street. March 30th, Downing Street confirms Mr. Cummings is self-isolating. March 31st, police are made aware of Mr. Cummings' trip. April 5th, Mr. Cummings is spotted in his father's garden. April 5th again, Scotland's chief medical officer resigns for visiting her second home. We are now in Easter. Between and around March the 30th and April the 6th, Mr. Cummings had become ill with coronavirus symptoms. Now, Mr. Cummings' wife, Mary Wakefield, editor of the conservative magazine The Spectator, wrote an article published on the 23rd of April, which revealed that Mr. Cummings had become very poorly. Mr. Cummings' wife, Mary, also had the symptoms in this. Now, okay, so we're up until the facts, aren't we now, people? And we're getting somewhere, but God knows what. But we're halfway through. So come on, let's do this, shall we? Anyway, Mr. Cummings and his wife were ill. They all jump in a car with their son and drive 260 miles. When most of you, and like myself, right, if you're a grandparent and you haven't seen your grandchildren in 3 months, man, if you're a parent and you and your ex-partner split up and you haven't got custody and your children live in England and you live in Wales, you haven't seen your children for 3 months. People have made these sacrifices to protect public health. It's not about Brexit. It's not about conservatism. It's not about socialism. It's not about that. It's about right from wrong, and the right thing to do is to protect public health. You're protecting the vulnerable people. Yes, now restrictions are easing. But anyway, as I said, in Mary Wakefield's article, day in, day out of 10 days, he dodged with a high fever, squirms that made his muscles and lumps twitch, and his legs he couldn't even lift, but only in a limited, shallow way, she wrote. Oh, that was nice. But anyway, it really does go back to, is there one rule for them and another rule for us, the people? At the end of the day, there shouldn't be. If you're the ones giving this advice, you should lead by example. What I quite find appalling as someone who practices faith, who believes in Jesus, who believes in God, is that when the Bishop of Newcastle, now this is the diocesan Bishop of Newcastle, who actually is above the Bishop of Durham, I believe, and, like a leader of a council or any big organisation actually talks to her junior clergy. So, there's a whole chain of command, and it probably goes right back to Dominic coming to his own parish. So the Bishop of Newcastle is able to gauge opinion of what's going on in her own diocesan area. Even in a suffragan bishop, so, is able to know this. The archdeacons are able to know this. The local ministry area leaders, the clergy, all, they talk to people. Just because we lock down doesn't mean that the church ain't talking to their members. So I believe that, what they were saying in their articles or in tweets was right. Now, when you're hearing people telling the church to stay out of politics, I'm going to find it quite funny that most of the political situation in the United Kingdom, or most of what we know as politics, was founded from the church. Most of the laws that we have come from the Bible. You can see them in the formation. So, yeah, I really do find it quite funny when you're telling the church to stay out of politics. How about politics stays out of the church? That's a better one. But anyway, there was no malice there. Because a Christian can't really have malice. Especially if one is a bishop. So, there was no malice there. They are, like myself, like any Christian, you are called by following Jesus Christ to call out injustices as you see them. And that was an injustice. One rule for us, another for them. At the end of the day, the bishops haven't been allowed to travel, have they? I'd like to remind anyone who wants to threaten a bishop's life, a bishop in England is a member of the House of Lords. So, I believe it carries a life imprisonment. So I would advise against it. I would advise against it anyway. We're going to play you a song, and I hope you enjoy.
When I'm working, yeah, I'm gonna be the man who tells you to stay home. When I go out, those rules don't apply to me. I will be the man who travels where I want. If my wife says, then I will not be the man who stays home to childcare. I call mother, then I'm gonna be the man who tries to take them there.
Okay, people, let's join in. We'll drive for 60 miles an hour. We'll drive to 60 more. Just be the man who drives them down his children at his mother's door.
When I'm working, yeah, I'm gonna be telling you all to quarantine. But when I'm challenged, cause I've been caught out driving, I'll remind you those rules don't apply to me. When I get home and I see my wife is sick, I will put them in the car and take a risk. I may spread it and create an increase, but I'd rather that than take care of my kids.
And I will drive to 60 miles and I will drive to 60 more. Just to be the man who drops his children on his mother's door. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you have enjoyed it, please go, like, subscribe, whatever. Visit our website, realtario.com. Do take a look at what I've said. In this article, there is an article that goes with these episodes. You can find them on our website. And, my friends, stay safe. Give your loved ones a hug if you can. Or even send them a virtual I care. But I do care about you guys. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye. And I'll finish playing the song for you.